Hersey, and this is Town Talk. With me today from Avangrid, Ken Kimmel, who's going to talk a little bit about Vineyard Wind, Park City Wind, Commonwealth Wind, and all the other winds in between. Ken, welcome. I hear that you're fairly new to Avangrid. Why don't you give folks a sense of who you are and how you came to be with the company?
Sure. Thank you, Paula. It's a pleasure to be here with you today, and it's a great chance to talk to you and the members of the Barnstable community. So my name's Ken Kimmel. I'm the Vice President for Offshore Wind Development at Avangrid Renewables. I've been on the job for about 2.5 months. Before that job, I was leading an NGO called the Union of Concerned Scientists, whose main focus is climate change. Before that, I was the Mass DEP Commissioner when Governor Deval Patrick was in office. And a major focus for me is climate change and the fear that all of us should have that we're leaving behind a world for our kids and our grandkids that isn't as good as the world we've inhabited. So I've really been working on climate change for a long time, and I came to the point in my life where I felt like the time for talk is over. It's time to build the clean energy future that we need, and the time is now. And I came to Avangrid Renewables because I was convinced that this particular company, with its technical expertise in offshore wind and its very creative and tenacious way of securing lease beds and contracts, was the best company poised to really make a difference in the short run. So that's why I came to Avangrid Renewables.
That's amazing. And we talked a little bit in the very beginning here about all of the different projects that are going on. Folks in Centerville have heard about Park City Wind, Vineyard Wind. Give us the sense of what's the different projects here.
Yeah.
Like lay it out for us, because there's a
Sure.
lot of names being thrown around and I'm a little confused.
Well,
too.
it is a little confusing. So there's 3 projects all in this same lease area about 25 miles south of Martha's Vineyard, plus or minus. By the way beyond where anyone from Barnstable could look out into Nantucket Sound and see these turbines. They are a long distance away. The first project that's being developed is called Vineyard Wind. It's a joint project owned 50% by Avangrid, 50% by Copenhagen Investment Partners.
Okay.
And that is the project where we've been doing some work on Covell's Beach and some work along some of the streets. So that project is first. Vineyard Wind, 800 megawatts of clean energy going to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. By far the biggest wind energy project in the country. And so we're so excited to be first. Right behind that, in the same general area, is Park City Wind, another 800 megawatt project. The power is under sale to Connecticut. That project is proposed to land at Craigville Beach and go up through Centerville. The exact route is still under discussion, actually, where we've been meeting with the Centerville Civic Association and others to figure out exactly what the optimal routing is. But that project's about halfway through permitting and several years away from being constructed, and we own 100% of that project. Right behind that is the third project in this trio called Commonwealth Wind. That's 1,200 megawatts of power going to the Commonwealth, and we've proposed to land at Dowses Beach and go through one of several potential routes to connect to a substation. Barnstable Eversource has a substation where it can handle all of the power from these projects. Barnstable has been a wonderful partner. We are extremely grateful to the citizens and the leadership, Mark Ells, Matt Levesque, other members of the town council, for being willing to host these projects. And maybe we can talk a little bit later about some of the community benefits. But collectively, this is about 3 gigawatts of power. To give you a perspective on that, that's enough power for about 1.5 million homes. This will be one of the largest, if you add these 3 together, one of the largest offshore wind projects in the world, and at one of the most favorable prices to ratepayers in the world. So we are extremely proud and excited to move forward on these projects.
Right, and as energy prices have increased dramatically over the last few months and the last year, really, looking at renewable energy is really something that we all should kind of take a stake in, right?
Yes.
So when you talk about these 3 different projects, they all are in Barnstable. Give us a sense of how, is it just because of the substation in West Barnstable, or are there other factors that kind of determined that?
There's a couple of different factors. First of all, several years ago, there was a lot of discussion about where all these cables were going to go. And everyone felt like they should try to follow along the same corridor to avoid having electric cables all over Nantucket Sound. Right. So there's a corridor that starts at the project and goes roughly north around Muskeget Channel and heads straight to the Cape. So that therefore says that the Cape is the right general location for the cables. And the reason for Barnstable in particular is, as I mentioned, there is an Eversource substation that has the capacity to take this much power, and we have the rights to connect to that substation. So it's a combination, but I would say the third factor is the relationship with the town and the leadership, and the fact that we've been able to work out some creative ways that we can help the town while the town is helping us as a partnership. So the partnership is also a major reason why we're here.
That's fantastic. Now, you talked about a little bit of things going through Centerville. We're in the middle of the comprehensive wastewater management plan. Our roads are being dug up across the town at this point. Is there a relationship there with our Department of Public Works to minimize construction with your construction?
Well, there really is, and this is one of the win-wins about this project at this particular moment. First of all, I want to say as a former DEP commissioner, I'm really proud of what Barnstable is doing in terms of solving the wastewater, the water quality problem. People are very aware that their ponds and their lakes and the ocean are eutrophying and leading to a condition that no one wants to live with, and you've really taken the lead in developing solutions, and some of it does involve sewers. What we've tried to do with the first two projects, and what we will do with the third, if that's the sentiment, is to time our projects so that when we're opening a road to put the electric cable in, the town is ready to put the sewer line in. That minimizes the disruption to the neighborhood so that the road doesn't have to get dug up twice. But also, we've taken on the final filling and paving and repaving of the road when it's done, which would be a cost that the town would have to do on its own if it were just doing the sewer line. So we're hoping that we're going to save money for the town and also create less disruption for the neighbors. The other aspect of our effort to minimize disruption is all the work that we're doing on the beaches or the roads is in the off-season. So we're not doing that work in the summer months.
Great. So you talked about these additional projects coming in, and want to go in depth a little bit on the Commonwealth Wind, which is the next project coming in. Give us a sense of timing on that, and what are some of the pieces that you see, or the puzzle pieces that you see that need to fall into place before this construction begins? Yeah,
so in our system of government, there are a lot of approvals that we need to go through. We need to get approval from the federal government to actually install the turbines in the seabed in federal waters offshore, and to lay the cable along the seabed to come into Barnstable. We need state permits for the work that's within state waters and on state land, and we'll need approvals from the Cape Cod Commission, the Town of Barnstable, the Barnstable Conservation Commission, and because we're close to both Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard for a portion of the cables, we'll need their permission as well. We will be doing very in-depth environmental review, both at the federal level and at the state level. All of those documents will be available for public review and public comment. And right now we're really in the stage of meeting with the neighbors, the community, getting their input, because we haven't made final decisions on the exact route for Commonwealth Wind or the exact design. And this is an opportunity right now for people to weigh in and help us understand what their concerns are. This is also a time when we can talk about how we can benefit the community in terms of how we time the construction or other things we might do. So it's a very fertile moment right now of discussion, but Our hope is that by about September, we're ready to start filing these permit applications, and then honestly it's several years of review before any actual construction happens.
Okay. With all of these projects, I remember doing an interview with Jen quite a few years ago now, 2 or 3 years ago, when they talked about economic development and jobs. You know, traditionally, Cape, Barnstable included, has relied on tourism and hospitality, which can be a lower paying job. Obviously, housing has increased in cost. Everything's increased in cost. Talk a little bit about the economic development and how that works with renewable energy. We hear a lot about it, but what does that actually mean? What does it translate to?
Yeah, so, you know, I think there's two things to love about these projects. If you're a climate hawk like me, you love the fact that we're getting clean energy. If you're concerned about economic development and the future workforce and who, for example, people without college degrees, what decent paying jobs will they have in the future? That's another reason to love offshore wind. So these projects are going to be enormous job generators. First of all, there's all the construction work that people are seeing. A lot of that work is being done by Cape Cod residents right now. That's the land work. There's also a tremendous workforce that needs to be trained and ready to do the offshore work, which does require training. As you can imagine, working on these facilities offshore, you don't need necessarily a 4-year college degree, but you need certification and training. And one of the things that we're doing for these projects is funding the Mass Maritime Association, various community colleges to train this workforce of the future to be offshore wind technicians. And we're also going to provide scholarships for people who can't afford the training to get that training. So I think there's those opportunities, and there'll be a lot of surge of jobs in the beginning for construction, but there's always going to be jobs for operation and maintenance too. These projects need a watchful eye to make sure that they're operating properly. So there's a tremendous opportunity all along the Cape and all along the South Coast. And it even goes one step beyond that. As part of our Commonwealth Wind project, we've made an agreement with an electric cable manufacturer. They're going to take over the old coal-burning power plant in Brighton Point in Somerset, Massachusetts. They're going to set up a brand new cable manufacturing facility there, and we're going to buy their output. And so I assume will other offshore wind companies who are developing these projects. So there's also going to be manufacturing jobs opportunities. So this is a huge job creator, both in the short and the medium and the long term, and that is another extremely exciting part of the story.
Right, you actually took my next question. I was going to ask about manufacturing, because the amount of product that you would need to lay the cable, the cables themselves, the autonomous kind of vehicles that you might need on the undershore, the shovels, you know, all of that has to come from somewhere, from manufacturing, and we know that we have supply chain issues now.
That's right.
So doing that within the region is probably very beneficial to the company.
It really is. I mean, right now, because Europe got a head start on us, a lot of the blade manufacturing and those pieces are done there. But I see no reason whatsoever why, once the offshore wind industry is jump-started and really takes a foothold, the manufacturing is going to come here. It's a lot cheaper than moving everything across the sea. So just as this cable manufacturer has made a home now in Massachusetts, I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the future. And really, all across the eastern seaboard, a lot of states have very ambitious goals. A lot of states want to do this, but we're the first.
Is there anything I haven't asked that you kind of want to talk about?
Well, I don't know if you've asked about it. I did mention at the beginning, but I just really want to shout out the town and its leadership and all the citizens. I've only been around for 2.5 months, but I've met a lot of people in that time. I've been down here a lot, and I have uniformly found people to be very thoughtful. Even people who are skeptical about the project, which is fine, but there's a sort of a civility and a conscientiousness that I really appreciate, and I appreciate Mark Ells and Chairman Levesque and others who are working with us. As I said, we could have this beautiful project out in sea, but unless we have a way to get the power into the grid, it doesn't matter. And so we're just really grateful for that and looking forward to working with the communities to solve the problems and also to minimize the disruptions and compensate for those. And one thing we didn't mention was the host community agreements we've signed. We have one for Vineyard Wind where we're providing above and beyond the tax revenue, which is substantial, $16 million to the town to invest as it chooses. We're hoping to have a similar one signed for Park City Wind, and we would anticipate the same for Commonwealth Wind, and it would make us one of the biggest taxpayers. And this is something where once you bury those cables and put them in the ground, they're not really demanding any town services. You don't have schools that you have to increase the size of to deal with housing or police or fire or those types of services. So I think it's a good deal for the town, but there's some disruption while the construction's going on. We're going to do our best to minimize it. We're going to make sure those beaches and those parking lots are beautiful when we're done with them. And I'm just excited about the opportunity to partner with Barnstable on this really exciting opportunity we have to do something about climate change and create a lot of jobs.
It is exciting. How can residents get involved or find out more information?
Yeah, well, we're doing a bunch of open houses, so keep an eye out for that. We have websites for the two projects, parkcitywind.com and I think commonwealthwind.com. That has the schedule, that has lots of information and opportunities to contact us. And of course, when we file for permits, all of that will be noticed, and there'll be comment periods and public hearings. So there'll be multiple opportunities to interact, and we welcome direct interaction. We'll meet with anyone who wants to talk to us about this project.
Fantastic. Well, it
Yeah.
was great talking to you
Yeah,
and
thank you,
learning
Paula.
more about all three of these projects. It's exciting for Barnstable as well as Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and maybe the world.
Maybe the world. Yeah, I hear you. I agree.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.